He once faked a square up, then sucker punched his opponent on the ice.
Level best to keep his concentration and his cool.
Gomez is flying. He sets up Yager. Yager for Gomez, holding on to it out in front. They score!
Another night, he turned a Stanley Cup playoff game into a circus until the NHL invented a brand new rule just to stop him. Was Sean Avery the nastiest player in the NHL, or just the loudest? Let's find out. Sean Christopher Avery came into the league undrafted, undersized, and convinced he could force his way into the story.
Carcillo with Carcillo. No, that was bound to happen.
Well, you knew it.
Detroit signed him as a free agent and quickly saw what they had. A forward who hit everything that moved, chirped from warm-up to final horn, and treated every shift like an argument on skates. When he got real ice with the Los Angeles Kings, the full act showed up. He led the NHL in penalty minutes in 2003-04 and again in 2005-06. You didn't just sign a left winger when you signed Sean Avery. You brought in a nightly storm and hoped your room could survive it. The play that carved his name into NHL history came in the 2008 playoffs against Martin Brodeur and the New Jersey Devils. On a 5-on-3, Avery parked at the top of the crease, then did something nobody had seen. He turned his back on the play and stared straight at Brodeur.
Goaltender like nothing I've ever seen before.
He waved his hands in the goalie's face, held his stick up like a wiper blade, and completely ignored the puck. Brodeur swatted at him, Madison Square Garden went wild, and fans everywhere asked the same thing. Is this even legal? On the next sequence, Avery turned back toward the play and scored. Less than 24 hours later, the NHL rewrote the unsportsmanlike conduct rule so any player who faces the goalie and waves his arms or stick just to distract him gets an automatic penalty. They didn't hide it. It was the Avery rule. How many guys can say one shift forced the rulebook to blink? The feud with Brodeur only got hotter. All series, Avery drove through the crease, brushed the goalie, and chirped after every whistle. When the Rangers finished the Devils in 5, the teams lined up for the handshake. Brodeur walked straight past Avery. No handshake, no nod. Avery went right to the cameras and called him Fatso, who forgot to shake his hand, hitting his weight and his pride in one sentence.
Certainly seemed, Sean, like in the first period they were out to put the target on your back and hit it as much as possible.
Years later, when Avery landed on Dancing with the Stars, Brodeur joked he was only adding to his list of embarrassments. Avery fired back from bed next to his model wife, dropped the Fatso line again, and hinted at Brodeur's off-ice drama. It wasn't just talk. In 2010, against the Edmonton Oilers, Ladislav Smid skated over to answer for a hit and clearly asked Avery to go.
It's probably not worth it. They continue to have words, and now they drop the gloves. Avery throws one punch and knocks Smid to the ice.
They squared up. Smid started to take his gloves off, and before he was ready, Avery threw the first punch and dropped him. It looked less like a square-off and more like a jump. A line brawl exploded around them. Avery walked away with a fighting major and a misconduct, no suspension, while even old-school enforcers said he'd crossed the code. He kept working the gray areas in quieter moments. Against the Islanders, he shoved Michael Haley from behind into the boards.
Center right zone, Mark Kadek over the line, gave it to Martin, whose shot is on, Johnson the save, another fight out in the center ice area. Jack Hillen involved again.
While Haley was turning, sending him at a bad angle and leaving him shaken. 2 minutes, that was it. In another game, he sat in the penalty box tossing water bottles toward heckling fans, turning the sin bin into his own slingshot.
Today, Avery was launching water bottles, one of which went flying by a group of kids. The bottles.
In Vancouver, after jawing with Shane O'Brien near the benches, O'Brien finally snapped and jabbed his stick into Avery's midsection.
Look at O'Brien's getting the stick on Avery, and that's a problem.
Avery calmly grabbed the stick, yanked it away, and flipped it aside. O'Brien got suspended and lost salary. Avery skated off grinning. Night after night, he seemed to leave the rink with more enemies than bruises. How long can a career run in spite? Nothing hit his career like one hallway soundbite in Calgary.
It's become like a common thing in the NHL for guys to fall in love with my sloppy seconds.
In December 2008, as a Dallas Star, he stepped in front of reporters before a game against the Flames and delivered a line he'd clearly rehearsed. He said it had become common in the NHL for guys to fall in love with my sloppy seconds, then told everyone to enjoy the game. He was talking about women he had dated, now with Flames defenseman Dion Phaneuf and Kings center Jarrett Stoll. In one sentence, he insulted players, dragged two women into a locker room joke, and put it on camera. The response was immediate. The NHL suspended him indefinitely for conduct they said damaged the image of the game. Stars owner Tom Hicks said the team would have done it even without the league. Coach Dave Tippett had already warned him to leave his past relationships out of the media.
But they suspended him for making a personal comment like that in the public. I guess they had an issue with him going to the media and airing out his dirty laundry in that way.
Leaders Mike Modano and Marty Turco told management they didn't want him back in the room. Avery apologized and called it a bad attempt to hype the rivalry, but the verdict was already in. The suspension became 6 games plus anger management sessions. When it ended, Dallas kept him out. Less than half a season into a 4-year, $15.5 million deal, the Stars waived him and moved on. One crude sentence cost him a team, a contract, and the last bit of benefit of the doubt. How many players have ever blown up from their own job before warm-up? You didn't have to be an opponent to be done with him. In Los Angeles, where he became a full-time agitator and fan favorite, he also became a problem in his own room. Reports later said he mocked young teammate Dustin Brown for his lisp and took shots at Brown's girlfriend, saying she didn't look LA enough.
I thought he was insecure and he didn't let his players be men that led the team and took their responsibilities upon themselves.
Veteran Ian LaPerriere called it bullying. The Kings suspended him for refusing a practice drill, then traded him. Brown stayed, wore the C, and lifted the Stanley Cup twice. Avery's story there ended the same way it would in other places. People inside the team quietly happy he was someone else's headache. That pattern started in Detroit.
Rangers to the vicinity in a hurry. I don't remember seeing that many players on the ice for one team.
Red Wings GM Ken Holland has said they moved Avery because he didn't show the respect for the game and the people in it they expected. On a veteran championship team, a rookie stirring up trouble and chirping nonstop wasn't funny, it was exhausting.
Coming to Boston, I'm going to sit in the stands with my Brett Hall 16 jersey. Let's see how tough you little shitheads are then.
At one point, even Steve Yzerman reportedly had to tell him to tone it down. Detroit decided the strain wasn't worth the upside and shipped him to the Kings before he ever became part of their core. In Dallas, his mouth and temper turned a contender into a soap opera. About a month before the Calgary clip, he clashed with a heckling fan in Boston, using language so extreme that an official complaint reached the league.
Under the scoreboard, the first tussle.
I was just going to say, they started Brandon Prust and Sean Avery. Sean Avery's tired of Ryan Buss.
In that same game, he took a needless penalty during a brawl. Modano called the night idiotic and one of the most embarrassing things he'd seen. Turco said they needed to get back to hockey instead of shows. By the time his suspension ended, the leadership group was finished. The big contract was effectively dead after 23 games. How many locker rooms can one player wear out? Avery didn't just fight with teams, he fought with the system. During the 2004-05 lockout, while most players stayed quiet, he blasted NHLPA boss Bob Goodnow, saying the union had thrown away a season and younger players had been misled. He complained about the NHL's competition committee, arguing there should be an appeals process for fines. League disciplinarian Colin Campbell fired back, saying Avery was disrespecting everyone in the game. In union meetings, he even challenged Chris Chelios, accusing older players of sacrificing younger careers. Chelios, by Avery's own account, was furious and told him to sit down. He didn't. He turned himself into a problem in the boardroom the same way he did at the crease. How many bridges can you burn before there's nowhere left to skate? Then there was John Tortorella.
I never liked coaches that tried to police a dressing room. You've got 23 men that police themselves.
Before he ever coached Avery, Tortorella had ripped him on TV for the sloppy seconds remark, saying players like that didn't belong in the league. When he later took over behind the Ranchers' bench, he still used Avery but kept him on a tight leash. After Avery retired, the Rangers went through a rough stretch and got shut out in back-to-back games. Avery jumped on Twitter and told the world, "Fire this clown, his players hate him and won't play for his BS." Not many recently retired players openly call their old coach to be fired. When the Rangers did move on from Tortorella after that season, Avery admitted he was smiling. Hockey culture loves the idea of keeping things in the room. Avery loved blowing the doors off the hinges. In New York City, he reinvented himself as Officer Avery. A self-appointed bike lane cop. He filmed himself confronting drivers, blocking bike lanes, scolding them, sometimes kicking at side mirrors, and posted the clips online. In 2019, it went too far. Angry at a minivan parked in a bike lane in the West Village, he rammed his scooter into it.
Side of the road. Yeah, don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole, you.
I am an asshole. Yeah.
That led to an argument, a police report, and a misdemeanor criminal mischief charge. Prosecutors offered a simple deal: plead guilty, pay a fine, take an anger management class. He refused, fired his lawyer in open court, and demanded a quick trial. Months later, he had to fly back from California for a jury trial anyway. In 2022, the jury found him guilty of attempted criminal mischief. He paid a small surcharge and got a 3-year order of protection, keeping him away from the van's owner. The New York Times nailed the contrast. Being a pest might work on the ice. In a courtroom, it falls flat. Then come the heaviest accusations, far from any rink. In 2015, he married model Hillary Rhoda.
I take direction well because it's my wife telling me what to do, which I think all men can.
They had a son, Nash, in 2020. In 2022, Rhoda filed for divorce and obtained a restraining order. In her court filings, she accused Avery of emotional abuse. He was arrested on a domestic battery charge. She also described a night when their sick toddler woke up crying and, according to her, Avery lost his temper. These are allegations, not proven facts, and the legal process is still unfolding. But they pushed his public story into something much darker than trash-talking villain. So what do you call that? The nastiest player of his era? The loudest troublemaker in a long list of them? Or just a reminder that the thing that makes you unforgettable can also make you unbearable? If you want more stories deep from the rink, subscribe and stick with us. We've got more coming.